Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the June 6, 2023 Lee Select Board meeting. First item on the agenda are the open session minutes of May 16th and May 24th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the open session minutes of May 16th and May 24th.
We could take them, actually, Gordon, if we could take them one at a time.
I will.
I wasn't here.
Not a problem. I'll do the 16th first, May 16th,
Second.
2023.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So I'll also make a motion to accept the minutes of May 24th, 2023 as written.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstention. Sabrina.
Thank you.
Okay, public comments. Take the gallery first. Anybody? Kathy?
Hello, Kathy Hall from the Lee Youth Commission. I only have one thing for this evening. A huge thank you to the 9th grade students, that's the freshmen, at Lee Middle and High School for their Community Service Day commitment for sanding and painting the picnic tables at the pavilion, organizing the sports equipment in the shed, and trimming the grass along the fences at the Lee Athletic Field on May 25th. A huge thank you also to members of the DPW and the staff at Lee Middle and High School for supervising this project. Everyone did a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else from the gallery? Ann?
Oops.
Hi, Ann Linus.
Hang on a second. We're muted here. We just want to make sure people can hear.
We're good now, sorry.
Okay. No, I don't want anybody to miss something you said. Okay.
So Ann Linus, I live on Union Street here in town. So myself and 13 other people from Lee, we went today to the Boston. It was the oral argument hearing for HRI and HEAL that was represented by the Andrew Rayner Group against EPA and GE. Just a couple of key things that I made note of. One I think is really important through whether it was the Powell Group who got up and spoke on behalf of Restive River, who interjected themselves into the oral argument, if you guys remember the money that they had passed. And Mr. Matt Powell made a statement how there was no objection from Lee residents. He was unaware that the townspeople in Lee and that our current select board seated certainly didn't feel the same way as when the agreement was put together. And I'd asked him after the meeting what made him say that, and he said that he was unaware of the changes in Lee. And I said, well, you know, certainly there's been an overturn with our select board seat. They've all been replaced, all three. And there are definitely several hundred residents, because we did our vote that we went to, that was a non-binding vote for having the agreement rescinded. So I specifically asked him, had he not heard from anybody about anything? And he specifically said to me, well, I've not heard from one select board member from the town of Lee that I should stop backing this. So, in light of that, if there's any way that one of you, or Chris, or all of you, could perhaps reach out to Mr. Powell and let him know, under no uncertain terms, that we no longer like the agreement that was originally signed upon by those three selectmen. If you guys could take that in consideration and maybe do that. And clear that up for him, to make it very clear that there are hundreds of residents in Lee and a majority of our select board that would like to see that agreement not followed through by giving Lee the upland disposal facility. The same statement was made by Jeff Hammonds, who said to the judge in court that there was no protest at all from the townspeople and the residents of Lee about having this UDF in our town. And it just blew my mind that they could go there in front of a judge, say these things, and claim that they don't know, that they haven't read the paper, that they haven't heard online, or any conversations from whether it's any of you guys or through Smitty Pignatelli or all the selectmen in the other towns, because there's just been so much that we've been going to the rest of River Committee meetings, you know, discussing things with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. So it just is beyond me that they can sit at that table in a courtroom, swear on that they're supposed to tell the truth, and they find a slippery way of getting around expressing the truth. So, thank you.
Okay, if, it was my error, thank you, Ann. I should have prefaced the public comments with a few comments of our own. In light of the recent ruling by the the Supreme Judicial Court on people's right to speak and by people's right to express themselves, it's incumbent upon us, when somebody gets up and speaks, or somebody is on Zoom or whatever, we can thank you for your comments. Of course, we hear you, and I'm not speaking specifically to Ann or anybody else. We'll thank you for your comments. The problem is, if we start, given the new ruling, if we start responding to any single individual in any specific way, in detail or whatever, we have to respond to all people who get up and speak, give them the same amount of time, and regardless of the subject, regardless of whether we know anything about it. So more often than not, it's not that we're not interested, and it's not that we ultimately are not going to respond. It's that we're sort of trying to protect ourselves and the public. We don't want to run into any kind of legal dilemma by being unfair, or to at least appear unfair. So if you get up and you make an impassioned plea about anything, and we say thank you for your comments, it's not that we don't care. We actually hear you, and we may very well find a way of responding, but it won't be during public speak time. That being said, if anybody has a concern that involves any kind of detail, they should do their best to get on the agenda for a meeting, and we can actually put you on the agenda and then speak away, and we can actually have a dialogue. Does that make sense?
Yes.
To people?
Yeah, to get on the agenda is a big deal.
To get on the agenda, it opens the door for a long conversation about these things. So, Ann, thank you for your comments. All right?
There's a couple on Zoom, if
Okay.
nobody else.
Anybody else in the gallery? Very good. And my error again, if you can just state name and.
Good evening, I'm Dave Forrest, I'm the acting chairman for the Board of Public Works. I have a couple questions. The main one has to do with the water main that we were supposed to go out to contract or bid with. I know I talked to you, Gordon, about it. Has any decision been made on what we're gonna do to move forward? I mean, we're talking about, we're not extending the new water line that we ran down from the reservoir a couple years ago. We're gonna pick up, Ty Bond told us everything wrong at the meeting. They told us that we were coming down, they were gonna come down, pick up a line on Ferncliff, cross over to Elm, but looking at the plans, we're gonna pick up a 12-inch cast iron main, and that's an old main that's on Main Street. And we were concerned, and even Gordon had a concern of what condition that main was in. We need to move ahead. I mean, I don't know if the funding stays in place if we don't go out to bid this year. I mean, I'm okay with Robert Street and with all of Railroad Street, but it's the tie-in line that I'm concerned about. I really think we need to bring that new main down Main Street to Elm. So it's at least that far, stub it for future down Main, and then go down Elm and Railroad. But we need to make that decision and soon. I mean, we I thought we were into the final phase of this. Now we're waiting for a decision. So is anybody, I mean, we're, as I say, we're sitting waiting. I don't know how long the town can wait. I guess that'd be up to Cresta. With funding, will the funding stay in place if we don't get out the bid?
So we have funding from two different sources. I don't know if you want me to engage
Well, I
this
was
now
gonna say,
based on what we
yeah,
said.
This is one of those issues.
This is one of those issues where it's
Well, we
public
can
speak time.
make
Yeah, yeah,
it quick.
yeah.
The quick answer is yes or no.
Well,
Maybe.
maybe.
I believe the funding could
this
stay
is-
in place. I don't think the funding's going to go anywhere
is all-
until the ARPA would be 2025.
Yeah,
so.
well, this is the problem we have. Your concerns are completely valid, and we want you to get an answer. But the public, because of this new state ruling from the Supreme Judicial Court, it's hard to do this kind of business during public speak time.
Okay.
Because we're setting a precedent for other issues.
All right.
So I would suggest,
I'll reach out to you tomorrow, Dave.
Okay. And second is information. We've all talked about, every one of us is sitting at that table and with my board. That information still is not coming to us, and I'll leave it at that, okay?
thank you. Anybody else in the gallery? Who do we have on Zoom?
Josh and Judy Herkimer.
Okay.
Hi, this is Josh Bloom, 204 West Park Street. Let me start my video. First, I want to say that I think that, as far as I understand it, Bob, your interpretation may be wrong. I think that you are allowed to respond to comments from the public if the topic of conversation is already on the agenda for the meeting. So if there is any reference to said topic of discussion, you can respond to it. And I don't think it takes precedent for the other topics that may not be on the agenda for the meeting. So I ask that you take that into consideration for either my comments or other comments, or to look into that further for future meetings. I want to second what Ann said, and I want to go a step further and say that I think that Matt Pawa committed perjury in the courtroom today. That I think that Bob Jones was very clear in meetings in which Matt Powell was present, and was present as the committee's attorney, in which Bob expressed and voted in opposition and spoke on behalf of the town as such. And I would like to see the town take a very firm stance on his perjury and his denial that he didn't know that our town was in opposition, and to take the position that we should be calling on the disbandment of the Rest of the River committee at this point. That we find that their legal representation is not representing us, and that we find that their chairperson is disregarding the intergovernmental agreement that requires them to cooperate with the town of Lee, and we've found that they are now obstructing our representation on that. So I'm asking that we consider asking to disband the agreement. If we can get the majority of the towns to vote for that, then we can do that. I also think that the town of Lee was poorly represented in the trial, and we probably should have had our own lawyer representing our position in the courtroom. And I think that the environmental organization's attorneys failed to properly represent a very important point, that our town opposed the position of the EPA and of GE. I want to say that the EPA has offered to have meetings with the town of Lee population apart from the CCC meetings. And according to the EPA, all of the select board members have rejected that offer. I think at this point, now that the appeal is in the books, essentially, we should take advantage of that offer and take the EPA up on any offers to meet with them that is in a public forum where it could be recorded and their comments can be documented. So those are, in summary, I think that the rest of the River Committee and the chairman is in breach of the intergovernmental agreement, and our lawyer has failed to represent us in court, and therefore we should be encouraging the dissolving of the agreement and dissolving of the committee. And I think that we should be meeting with the EPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
You got one more on here, Judy, with Heel.
Okay, Judy Hookheimer of Heel, you're recognized. Judy, can you hear us? Judy? Is she muted?
She is. I asked her to unmute.
Yeah.
Like, if she can't hear us, then.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Will she be able to chime in after when she gets unmuted?
She's muted.
It's up to Bob.
I don't know how to tell her that she's muted.
If she's listening, she would know she's
No.
Yeah.
muted. Maybe she's out of the room.
You can unmute everyone.
Yeah, we're unmuted, so.
She
All
must
right.
be out of range of her
Right,
connection.
or doesn't know how to unmute, which
He
happens
just
as well.
unmuted everybody.
Yeah.
I tried,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, as we have no other public comments at this time, we'll move on to general business. There we go. Rob? Again, just identify yourself for the people at home.
Good evening. Rob Wright, 20 Peace Harris, Bay, Mass. Under the agenda, will I be allowed to address certain issues on the agenda for this evening? Or do I have to prerequisite them now?
No, I think when the item comes up on the agenda, we'll be able to have that conversation.
Okay, great, thank you.
Still nothing from Judy. Okay.
I don't know if that's somebody just came into the waiting room, maybe that looks like a phone, maybe she's trying to get on that way.
Oh,
No?
looks like she's unmuted now. Judy, are you there? There you go.
Judy, can you hear us?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, and can you hear me?
Yes, Judy Herkimer from Heel.
Thank you. I got booted off because we live very rurally here. Thank you to the Select Board and to the town administrator. My comments are directed to the Ecospheres representative and to the Select Board. This is a long time coming to have Ecospheres come to town. We've been following Ecospheres, HRI and HEAL and others for many years. And I am looking from Ecospheres for essentially a data dump of their current data at the sites that they've been involved with, such as Guam and Canada and Eastern U.S. and any other sites that I don't know about that they have done bench scale or perhaps in situ testing and sampling. And it's incredible to hear that, to learn that Ecospheres is involved with the ATSDR Brown program. They're also involved internationally with IPEN as it relates to the Stockholm Convention, where 2028 is a target date to have as many sites as possible remediated by 2028. Unfortunately, the United States did not ratify that. So anything that Ecospheres can provide HRI and HEAL, because we have people coming to us ever since Ecospheres was put out publicly that they have been visiting this site and they plan to sample. People are coming to us and we can't answer all of their questions. So any links, any documents that EcoSpheres can provide, I'm not certain which representative is here this evening, and we can put it up on our respective websites and on social media. And welcome to the Berkshires, and here's hoping you get an EPA QAP as soon as possible. Thank you all.
Thank you, Judy. All right, as we have no other requests for public comment, we're going to go into general business. The first item is a presentation from EcoSpheres, and just reminding everybody that this is a presentation. Chris and I spent an hour with the reps this afternoon. Very, very, very interesting. I think you'll find it interesting tonight at the end, and we will have a question period, but we'd like to remind everybody that we're here, this is informational, we're here to hear what they have to say, to answer a few questions, but they're going to be coming back to us with a suggestion, a plan, a presentation more specific to our situation at a later date. But look forward to hearing from EcoSpheres starting right now.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sergio Albino. I'm the CEO and co-founder of EcoSpheres, and it is Berkshire, not Berkshire, so forgive us, we're new to town. We're learning the ropes here. And man, I gotta have Judy with me all the time now. So that was the best layup so far, Trevor. We could learn from that. Good evening, everyone. So, as Trevor, are we ready with the presentation there, Trev?
Yeah, 1 second.
I'm gonna sing and dance here for Trevor for a second. So I usually start these presentations, and I actually gave this presentation, about 3-4 weeks ago at the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Convention at the United Nations. We were invited by the International Pollution Network to present our non-combustion, non-incineration type technologies, to which the Spears technology, the green spikes that you'll see floating around here, has actually been recognized by IPEN as an best available technology and best environmental plan for the international community for in situ sediment remediation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But as our team and I kind of drove around here this afternoon looking for coffee shops, enjoying the much cooler weather than Orlando, 2 quotes come into mind. I was kind of wrestling between the two, but I'll just say they're both by Dean Kamen. Every once in a while, a new technology, an old problem, and a big idea turn into innovation. Right? We've been looking at, the world has been looking at PCB as an issue for quite a long time, right? And over time, we developed new technologies to address these issues. And we hope that EcoSpheres could provide a bit of hope for the future here for the Berkshires. One that actually started from Kennedy Space Center, from NASA Kennedy Space Center. The other quote is, innovation is one of those things that society looks at and say, if we make this part of the way we live and work, it will actually change the way we live and work. And I think that's really important, right? Because that's something with innovation. It first starts with faith, then it leads to something so big, such as innovation. Trev, are we good?
2 seconds here.
Yep. The other presentation that we provided for the community was actually to the community in the Anacostia River also. Community engagement event with Exelon Corporation, who's one of our investors, and we have a pilot program right now with the Spears technology at Anacostia River with Pepco Holdings. More on that coming later in the year. Judy, I promise you, will provide some data dump in the upcoming times. I don't know how much time we have here, but you guys have the bat line to EcoSpheres, so just holler when you can. Good, Trev?
Yeah, we're nearly there.
No worries, no worries. So we started at 4 a.m. this morning, by the way.
Oh, boy. All right.
Us too.
Up to Boston.
Yeah, and we go to Boston next week. We meet with EPA Region 1 on Monday.
That looks
And then I'm off to Hawaii and Guam and Marshall Islands the following week. So
Can we go with you?
it's much warmer over there. Yeah.
Stop sharing again.
And one of the sites that we have in Guam where we deployed this on a pilot study with U.S. Coast Guard. Oh, you can pass it around, Doug. It just got hit by a typhoon. So those are one of the things also that you have to be mindful of, because there's just so many different elements to the environment and what you're dealing with. And they came to us and asked us, well, how are your spears going to do when a typhoon hits it? How did the buildings do? Those are things that we just can't plan for. We try.
Start? Start your video and see just.
And for the folks online, our team here is trying to get the deck to show on Zoom.
You know what, you might need to change the view, Sean, because I see it on, I see it, the people at home can see it.
If the people at home can see it, Trev, you could just face your. It's going to be hard.
Well, you know what? I don't actually have control. You would have to, because he's the Zoom now, so you have control. I think, maybe. It's,
He just did that. He just tried to do that.
I told her there were darts earlier, and I was looking for a dartboard around town. So, fun fact, by the way, this goes through Pentagon just okay.
Can you just explain? I see it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So they're plastic spikes filled with a reagent that, when you press it into the sediment layer, it absorbs the contamination from pore water and eventually in sediments. Because in the pore water, that's where the most contaminations are bioavailable and that can move into benthic population, the crustaceans, and finally into food web, into fish. So it absorbs it from that. And most people just say, okay, how does that do that? I always ask the question, are you familiar with passive samplers? Right? Very similar to passive samplers. The difference is NASA figured out a way how to design it and patented ability
It's always great when it works,
to
but it never
have
works
a
all the
reagent
time.
on the inside, so it opens up the plastic lattice, allowing for more absorption, and it just keeps absorbing contamination like a sponge. And I always kind of joke around, it's kind of like my wife's purse. It's endless. It just keeps dumping stuff in there.
Yeah. So is
this a life-size version?
Yeah, that is
6 times bigger?
No, that's the 12-inch version. We're tooled up for 18 inches. We're doing right now a design, a fabrication of 24 and 36 inches for a client in New York, different river, you probably imagine. And then we're also looking at those same clients also asking us for a 5-foot-long spike.
He's showing everybody on Zoom.
It's plastic, so you have to be mindful of the design integrity and refusal at the bottom. You have a question, sir?
Well, before you go much further, we're just about to get everybody involved.
There you go.
So if you can just hang for a minute, then we'll get everybody in the conversation.
We should be good to go.
I'll get you.
You guys are live now. Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries.
You only got forward, so.
All right. Thanks for your help, Sean.
You only have forward? Oh, that's not good.
I can go backwards here.
Okay.
All right, Sean,
All right, here we go.
All right, so Ecosphere's instrument and change, hope for the environment. This is really where we kind of really want to start this out, right? This is something that, we want people to be more knowledgeable of what came out of the Kennedy Space Center arena or confines there, because we had our own PCB issues as well. Frankly, all buildings older than 1980, right, has PCB. And PCBs were great molecules or substances before we knew about them, how bad they were. allows us to have lights right now because we're in transformer oils, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But we had this also at Kennedy Space Center because we had a lot of those shipyard gray buildings. Those had to have PCBs in them also. Caulking had them as well as transformer oils. So what do we do with them now? Okay. PCBs or forever chemicals are everywhere. I hate to say it, but you can kind of figure yourself out where you are on this map. The drinking water stuff scares me a little bit there, right? And those, though, are in Washington State, by the way, have the highest regulation when it comes to clean water standards. Chesapeake is now starting to adopt it, and more around the nation is also starting to do it. PCBs, we've started our company specifically on PCBs because they were regulated by the US EPA as well as the World Health Organization. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Persistent organic pollutants, all the other contamination out there, right? Especially the legacy ones, the DDT, the new emerging ones, 1,4-dioxane, UPOPs, right, are the ones that you create by trying to burn legacy contamination. And of course, unless if you've been hiding your head in the sand, PFAS, that's coming, right? So just be mindful, oh, lost the presentation. Just be mindful that when it comes to PFAS, not trying to scare anybody, but every single airport or fire training center should have it. So be mindful of that. So, United States. It's also a global pandemic. One thing about chemical contamination or forever chemicals, it does not discriminate. It doesn't know any borders. Frankly, you know, it's the enemy, right? 14 million tons of PCB contaminated stockpiles remain to be eliminated around the world. This figure is actually primarily more towards transformer oils, okay? The rest of the world still use transformer oils with PCB. And even if they evacuate it and refill with ethanol, with mineral oil, they just kind of create new volumes of it. Much lesser volumes, but still new. This UNEP, United Nations Environmental Figure, doesn't even count the PCBs that's actually in soil, sediment, or water. So they're trying to destroy all this, 14 million tons, or 83% of what's left over, by 2028, and trying to remove anything in use by 2025. So we're actually in discussions now with United Nations Environmental Program and Global Environmental Fund to develop our EcoCube or UV treatment system to treat transformer oils specifically, stockpiles and in situ. It has a lot of defects, right, or health defects. It impacts health, human health, and we're also starting to see our wildlife population suffer because they're becoming sterile and they're having other causes or other diseases caused by these types of contamination. Not just PCB, other types of forever chemicals as well. And the most at risk, right, are underserved communities. Because as cities grow and more lower income population has to move outside of the cities. And they don't know any better, so they're moving further and further away to most of these landfills or incinerators because that's where cheap land is at, right, or cheap lease. And they don't know any better. The signs, they don't pay attention to them even if they're, you know, multilingual. And those are really the ones that I care for the most, right? Because I'm a native of the Philippines, grew up in New York, and moved to Florida. So I know what it's like living in a third world country and having to learn all this and much more. I was fortunate enough, my parents got me to Florida, and I became an aerospace engineer at Kennedy Space Center, where I did a lot of this stuff. And the remedies, they're costly and environmentally damaging. And partly of this is that this is what we knew what to do. A lot of incinerators, especially in Canada, are closing down. Frankly, it's not very cost effective for them to operate those anymore, right? Landfills and transportation, let's just say it's a very, very expensive way of changing the zip code. Okay? That's being kind of coy. But for our clients in Guam and Hawaii, they have to transport everything back to mainland. And those are very, very sustainable countries or territories, so people, culture. So when they transport and dispose of this, they maybe get rid of their soil or sediment with PCBs or other POPs, but now they're thinking, what are we trading it for? Clean soil, clean water for bad air? That's not cool, okay? And this is really the essence of where EcoSphere started as a company. Because I worked at NASA Kennedy Space Center and I developed a lot of payloads for the Space Shuttle program at the International Space Station, water treatment process systems for lunar applications. We learned, especially when you're dealing with space, you learn to develop and design things from what I call a cradle-to-cradle approach. It has to be sustainable. So if you're going to burn it, you need to understand that you're going to inhale it at the same time. So this is really the essence of EcoSpheres. When I left Kennedy Space Center in 2012, my mentor, Dr. Jackie Quinn, who actually owns the license or the technology for the most licensed technology at NASA, which is an emulsified zero-valent metal treatment system for groundwater treatment. She co-discovered the Spears technology, the green spikes, with Dr. Phil Maloney and Dr. Bobby DeVore, because they had a technology that actually was a paste technology that you could apply on structures to extract PCBs from concrete and caulking and walls, and then dehalogenate it. But the challenge was, how do you get it out of the sediment? The most difficult issue there is, because that gets us to our food web right away. So they developed, Jackie read an article about plastics in the ocean coming back with high levels of concentration of chlorinated concentration. So she ran down to Sonny's barbecue downstairs at the ONC, grabbed some straws, took her hair crimping iron, that's the legend, crimped one side of it, filled it with reagent, crimped the other side, and put it in a stock solution of PCBs. About 14,000 parts per million. And within a few days, everything was absorbed in the straw, the plastic with alcohol or reagent. And that's how it started. My co-founder Ian and I was fortunate enough to stars aligned. We actually attained the exclusive license to the Spears technology from NASA Kennedy Space Center in 2017. It was the last exclusive license NASA gave that. And they entrusted us with it because they wanted this to go into the world outside of the NASA confines to impact communities like the Berkshires. And since then, we've been kind of around the world. I've accumulated quite a bit of mileage. We were in Geneva about a month ago, DC last week. I'm traveling again to the Southeast, Southwest Pacific. So we were starting to get all these recognitions for the Spears technology, but as more and more clients came to us and said, hey, we have soil issues as well. We have groundwater issues as well. Can you take the dredged sediment, dewater it, and then treat it with your soil treatment systems? We actually started building other technologies, and our EcoINA soil treatment system actually got a comfort letter from the US EPA Tosca branch in 2018, or 2020, sorry. So we developed these technologies to continue to build them out further because we want these to be available to folks around the world to be a cost-effective and sustainable treatment system. And why is it sustainable and cost-effective? Well, it's simple. If you don't have to transport very, very far away and you don't have to burn it, it's sustainable and it's cost-effective. The math is simple. Sustainable just means cost-effective, right? And this is just some of the sites that we have piloted the Spears technology, our EcoCube 50 gallon per minute water system, and also our EcoINA system. We're going to be piloting this in Hawaii and Guam later this summer. So Spears is going around quite a bit. Very proud, especially of our study in Port of San Diego. Those results are coming in actually next week, and our Sweden study is going to be coming in a few weeks, and that's for dioxins, PCBs, and PEHs. And how do we do this as a emerging business team of what are we now, 21, Trevor? And John feels like light years or dog years in the startup world. Well, we partner with the best, right? We recently partnered with WSP as part of their Emerge program. We partnered with Black & Veatch as our technology scale-up partner. We even have partnerships with AECOM and some of these sediment sites as well. Why? Because it takes the team to get the job done for the community. We also need the community and the cities to partner into the solutions. And that's just about it. This is kind of like forming the Avenger team here for the environment. So our transformative technology systems, I'm just going to stay high level on this, and if we have the time for questions, I'll field those there. Just know that there's two categories, extraction and elimination. Ecoina is a soil treatment system. We don't use the green spikes in this one. We just use straight reagent, mixing it with the soil or dried sediment. And that way we could diffuse or dilute the contamination directly into the reagent. And then we treat that reagent and destroy the PCBs. And we're going to do a QAP and a study on this with EPA on the EcoCube, for EcoCube to be the alternative to incineration and alternative to decontamination in solvent. The sediment in situ technology is, of course, the spears. These are, like what I said earlier, you press it down into the sediment and you allow the contamination to be absorbed into the green spikes like a sponge. It's a longer term process. This is not a Tylenol fix. So this can be part of a vernal pool approach where it could be there in the wetland area, areas where you don't want to dredge, especially around harbors or around areas where there's utility, or areas that is post-dredging. And you may basically want to make this as part of the reconstructive enhanced natural recovery approach. Tim.
Can those spheres go into the bottom of the river?
The sediments, yes.
The sediments?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That's where they go.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So
And
in situ?
in situ,
Yes,
yes.
okay. Wow.
Yeah. Or like my surgeon friends say, it's in situ, Surge. So they're much smarter than I. And of course, the elimination EcoCube solution, this is a UV advanced oxidation process. And what we're doing with this one is we're treating either the reagent that we're getting from our soil treatment system or our spheres. We dehalogenate the PCBs in there, breaking off the chlorines, breaking off the biphenyls, and then filtering that in granular activated carbon. So essentially what we're doing per step is total waste volume reduction, moving the contamination into a solvent, and then we're treating the solvent, and then processing that or polishing it so we could reuse the solvent, both soil and plastic. Yes?
So what would be left in that situation?
The biphenyls and chlorine that are broken off.
Right, but they're going to be separated?
They're going to be separated and they're going to be absorbed in granular activated carbon. So that you're not loading your GAC with PCBs, you're loading it with broken up molecules of former PCBs.
And then what happens with those two separate breakdowns of the...
So technically at that point, this is more of where the regulators come into play as part of the treatment plan, is that because it's no longer PCBs, it could be just treated as HAS waste, and possibly just go, and remember, now it's confined in a filter that's double controlled or double line controlled, that can just go to a Subtitle D landfill or somewhere close by, and in much smaller volume as opposed to removing all the millions of tons of sediment or dirt you're supposed to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because remember, what we're doing is and there's not very much, the concentration may be high, but the total amount of, say, milligrams of PCB are very, very small. So when we transfer that into the reagent and then and break it down and trap it into the GAC, it's actually very small.
So the volume comes down?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Since we have such a large area that is contaminated with PCBs, would it make any sense to put them into a landfill like we're talking about?
Yeah.
And treat the whole thing in one location?
Yeah, I think that's one of the conversations that we had here this afternoon. Again, this needs to be part of like the overall brainstorming strategies, right? If you're going to have 25 parts per million at a UDF here, And the spears, for example, just needs incipient wetness, a little bit of wetness, because that's where the molecules, they use that as superhighway to get to the plastic. So that could be incorporated into that, and it becomes part of the remediation strategy. Because remember, once the PCBs are absorbed into the plastic and into the ethanol, it's no longer in the environment. The fish can't bite into it, right? I can't say too much about the other types of amendment, carbon capping, that stuff that they do. That's not my expertise. I have a lot of good friends in that, and we kind of go back and forth. But at the same time, I like working with them because if we use an amendment cap, carbon, and then so that we could sequester the PCBs in place, then we pierce it with spears. Now we're having sequestration from the top layer, reducing the risk so that when we press the spears, we're now actually doing active removal. And then when we're at a point now where the fish tissue, because it all ties into fish tissue. Fish tissue, pore water, sediment concentration are the right levels. You could take the spikes and remove just the PCBs without having to destroy your fauna and flora here in the Berkshires. Okay? And of course, the EcoCube, we're actually building this out for the United Nations Environmental Program. Gosh, Southern African developing countries and Caribbean, we're talking to them now of treating stockpiles of transformer oils contaminated with PCBs, about 5,000 parts per million, sometimes higher, and treating that, and we're able to actually get those down to non-detect levels within hours instead of filtering it.
Within hours? Yeah, in hours.
Yeah.
What is the size of that cube?
Just
curious,
like the size of this area right here.
Wow, that's small for that kind
Yeah.
of impact.
And the reason for that, again, comes back to my NASA days, right? I'm kind of cheap. So when I send stuff to space, if it gets too heavy or too big, it costs me a lot of money. So I like to make everything scalable and modular. That's a 50-gallon per minute system with two 100-gallon tank reactors. If my client wants to do 400-gallon tank reactors or 400-gallon per minute system, I just line up 4 of those. We're good. And then I could palletize everything or put it in a trailer, and it's in there. My approach to water treatment, for example, with utilities, is I like the decentralized model, right? Why pipe everything into a processing facility? There's a plan for that. But if we could also treat it at the source, you're getting more bang for your buck, right? It's like cancer treatment. You don't kill the whole body, you go after the tumor. The hot spots are the tumors, because if you treat the hot spots and lower that down, your standard weighted average concentration goes down. Yeah? So, all right. So that's a little bit of technology. Here's a little bit of the Spears high level. We've tested this on PCBs, chlorobenzene, DDX, DDT, essentially. PAHs, it absorbs that also. We now have a study in Hawaii at an airfield for PFAS at a burn pit site where all their stormwater runs off to. Dioxins in Sweden is being tested. We should have results on that soon. And then organic metals also we're evaluating for. Okay? Let's see. And by the way, the sampling size is about this size for the mat, but we make the mats about 3 foot in diameter also. And we lay them down. Eventually, we're going to lay them down with automation and robotics, like a gantry system. That way it makes it more efficient, and I don't expose my team to the environment where they could absorb these contamination. Iko Aina, Aina means land in Hawaiian. We commemorated this technology because of our Hawaiian projects with Hawaii Department of Health and all the other folks there, US Coast Guard there as well. And we've tested this solution now for PCBs and dioxins and PAHs. Works really, really well. DDT also works great. TCE works great. We're now getting soils coming in for loaded with PFAS in like 8 different regions that we're going to be evaluating this too. And then EcoCube, let's talked about this. One of the things that we're really excited about is 1,4-dioxane as well as advanced pharmaceuticals. Any kind of pharmaceutical manufacturing area, their washdown may have, heart medication, chemo medication. birth control medication. Sometimes, or most often actually, water treatment facilities don't have the capability of handling those. This technology we envision to treat those, we were just down selected by Black & Veatch to test this out on a pilot study for landfill leachate at 7 landfills within a site, let's just say Region 3. So, gotta stay high level sometimes with these things. Groundwater, transformer oils, and this is what it's all about, guys. You know, even if we do an amazing job with ecospheres and getting this rolled out, I think we're only gonna kind of scratch the surface. The environmental contamination world, it's massive, right? My investors love that because they get to see us design and build more things that could truly impact the world. And we are truly building a global company. We just got selected for an accelerator I can't say yet in a continent somewhere very, very far away, probably imagine. And that will be released in a few weeks. And what's cool about that will be our springboard company into that respective continent. And we're also looking to expand our footprint into the EU, as well as with Sweden to start off from. And again, our focus here is imagine a world where every human being has access to clean food, clean air, clean water, without sacrificing clean air. That's really the focus that we want as a company. We live by those standards, and we'd rather say, no, we're not the right guys for that approach because it's beyond us, than try to sell snake oil. So I worked for government and NASA too long that I know exactly how to be straightforward.
There's a lot of those snake oil salesmen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But yeah, that's the deck. Any more other questions? Yes, sir.
So Sergio, can you tell us about our project of sampling in the Houstonic River and what you will be looking for, sort of, and what you will, in other words, just what you'll do. Give us a little synopsis.
Yeah.
I know we're not totally there yet, but I'm putting you on the spot to
so
tell us,
I'll give you a high level what we typically look for when it comes to spear sampling. One, we approached everything, and this is through our relationship with Roger Brewer from the Hawaii Department of Health, which is he's a risk assessor for them. And we incorporated decision unit multi-incremental sampling, or ISM, incremental sampling method, because we want to get a good weighted average over the site. We asked that the samples provided to us is contaminated. It's hard to clean sediments, and we have enough of them to basically do some studies in-house and then have an understanding how much we're absorbing over time. We'll also test out the eco-ina process in that regard as well, where we dry the sediment and treat it like soil. The other thing important to note with spears, can I borrow that real quick, John? One of the things that we we like with these really well is that we deploy this and we deploy that in, say, a river or a vernal pool, and we can allocate every quarter. We'll come out and remove the mat, and actually test the spikes and the reagent inside. That way you'll get a quarter-to-quarter reporting of how much contamination has been absorbed. So if one spike has absorbed X amount of contamination over 3 months, and then 6 months, 9 months, you can multiply how many have we deployed over time. Some of the studies that we're getting or responses that we're getting now with our clients, we deploy it and they see the results, and the first thing they say to us, I wish we actually did this 5 years ago when you guys started. So, because we could have absorbed more. But that's just where we are today. So, yes, sir.
So if you had an area of, say, let's say 100 square feet, would you put those things down, they let them clear about every 2 or 3 inches?
Yes, sir.
Would you fill it up with those spikes every 2 or 3 inches apart, the 100 square feet?
Yeah, they'll come in a mat that's about 3 feet in diameter, and we'll lay it down like carpet tiles. Because you're just trying to absorb as much as you can. If somebody ever tells you they're going to get the levels down to 0, chase them out right away. They're lying. You're going to try to absorb as much as you can over time. But yes, it's a contact sport when it comes down to environmental remediation and sediment remediation in situ, it's not a different case. The more spikes you have, the more the more dense it is, the better it is. You just have to be mindful of the closer you get. Remember, we're moving sediments as we're pushing this down. So you just have to be mindful of that interaction.
So when you say over time, what kind of time? Days, weeks, years?
Years.
Years?
Yes, sir.
So that would be pressed into the ground for several years?
Yes, sir.
And stay there?
Yes, sir. And then over those years, you're sampling and you're actually showing proof and data that as long as these stay in the ground, they're absorbing contamination. You know that chart that everybody shows you where if you don't do anything, the fish tissue's consumption goes like this into high levels of concentration? All the amendment strategies is essentially looking to level or flatten that curve. This is very similar because if the PCBs are absorbed into here, it's not getting into your benthic population, into your food pipe.
Right, so that looks like it's about a foot.
Yes.
It goes in the ground about a foot. So how far down is it effective? Just
about a foot, yes. So it's effective to about a foot. We have different lengths of it. Right now we're asked to be tooled for 36 inches and 5 feet also for a very unique site. And but when you look at the EPA regs, their main concern is essentially the benthic population layer, which is the top 6 inches. And when it comes to thermodynamics, right, high concentration moves to low concentration. As you clean that top layer, PCBs from the bottom is going to migrate up because there's areas of low concentration there. And if the spikes are there, they're going to get absorbed into the spikes. So you're always creating that clean barrier with spears on the top 6 inches so that the fish doesn't get contaminated.
So you have a cost per square foot, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, we'll cost that out based on the project, based on timeline. And one of the things too that we're starting to build out from a cost matrix for this one is pay for service, right? It's a pay for service basically. We can design this to be built out as more of an OpEx model rather than a big CapEx model where you're buying a ton of them, you're paying up front, and you don't know what's happening, right? Here we're basically saying pay the upfront to get them down and then pay for the analysis, right? Because as long as we're showing removal, why would you want to take it out? Right? Especially if it's, and let's just say dredging is 10 million and this is 10 million. But dredging is over, let's say, 1 year. But this is over 10 years. You're spreading out 10 million over 10 years now. A little bit more palatable than one big hit you have to budget for. And then, of course, you don't have the trucks, the incineration, the treatment.
Or a town.
Yeah, we visited the site earlier, by the way. Yes, sir.
Again, we get into distance and, we're talking miles of river.
Yeah.
And we're talking more miles of riverbank.
Yeah.
This system seems minute to me. I mean, I just have to be honest, it just looks like it's for a small area.
Yeah.
And we're talking a gigantic area.
Yeah.
That's why I brought up, and I believe me, I don't want to dump either.
Yeah.
But if we took hot spots and put them into a landfill and treated, because now you're in a confinement again.
Yeah.
You treat it with your method because you're making this a smaller area. And then when you're all done, you've got clean soil, you can leave it in place and it'll never bother the environment again.
So if we're going to do an ex situ, dig it up basically and put it into a UDF, we wouldn't actually just use spears for that. That's a long-term process. We would dewater that and then treat the dried sediment in the Ecolina system so that we can instantly dissolve it. And that's a better way of treating a large volume over time. And when we spoke with Region 2, EPA Region 2, actually right before COVID, they actually asked us, can you do this on a barge? Can you do this on a, what was the facility that Dr. Karen Swetland Johnson from EPA suggested also approved, what was that?
It was a mobile treatment.
A mobile treatment system, because our comfort letter also covers a mobile treatment site as well. So as long as we're there, our treatment plant will become more of a green alternative. But yeah, you're right, you guys have a lot of volume.
Well, did you visit Woodspot?
I did.
Okay, now, last I heard, they were talking about turning this into a slurry.
Yeah.
And pumping it to the waste disposal site. How do we ever dewater that amount of contaminant?
Yeah.
So that you can do anything with it?
Yeah.
I mean-
So, by the way, you know, we had a good talk with EPA this afternoon here. And to be frank with you guys, sediment is very, very flocculent. I don't envy the engineers that have to basically wait on that flocculant to settle. It's a pain in the butt. We did a study with a site in Hudson River. 100 parts per million of PCBs and sediments. It was nasty. It was really nasty. Lots of pHs to it too. I hated it because it was so flocculent. When we dewatered it and we did the Eco-INA, we got it down to below 1 part per million. So, by doing that, and again, it was in a lab fashion, right? We now built our pilot unit systems that could actually handle a higher throughput. There's a method to doing it. What I like about these types of processes that we're going about, because by the way, I'm not a chemist. I'm an aerospace engineer with focus on thermal management and design for manufacturing. Meaning, I'm very pragmatic with my designs, and I want to focus on setting this up for scale, right? Because I am mindful of the 100,000 ton site, right? Not just a 50,000 or 5,000 ton site we have right now. The bigger the sites, you're going to have to build more engineer controls with it. But even if you're treating the high levels, I don't want to say that you could always do beneficial reuse with sediment. It's very tricky. But if you're going to haul it out, at least haul something out that's treated in lower contamination, or if you're going to keep it in state, keep the stuff lower concentration. Because if you had a decision, you had, let's say hypothetically dust work, and it can only get down to 2 parts per million, right? But on the other case, 25 parts per million without treatment. Which one would you have? I think the math is simple. Now, the math of financials, costs, timeline, all has to factor in, but that's just looking at it comprehensively. And that's the reason why we're here. We're here to talk. We've been trying to, like Judy said, we've been trying to do this for a while. COVID slowed us down a little bit, and we've been focused more on the Southeast and Southwest Pacific. But I'm a product of New York City. So this area is kind of like home to me also. So let me know how I can help our team this year for you guys. And our team is here for EPA Region 1. Our team here is here also for GE. We want to be the instrument for change that allows all sides that have cordoned up and legaled up to come together again and say, hey, what about this? Let's at least try it. Don't trust me, don't trust my data. Let's see it on your site and getting your data. Okay?
Thank you.
Bob, is that okay?
One question here on the computer, I think. Can you go ahead, Josh?
Yes, Mike, you've talked a little bit about your engagement with the EPA and about going through the process of having them maybe recognize your technology. At present, the EPA has dismissed your technology and has told the town of Lee that it doesn't recognize it as applicable. So, can you address that concern that the EPA hasn't recognized your technology yet as being applicable in this circumstance? And are we just simply talking about you participating in the process that they're going to go through to allow groups to test their technologies, or are you talking about trying to contract with the town to actually use your technologies? If you're talking about contracting the town, or are you talking about contracting with the Rest of River Committee, which is the 5 towns? Who is theoretically paying for all of this, and how are they paying for it? And is the technology less expensive than the EPA's plan? Because the EPA has told us if using technology is more expensive, we would not be considered?
Yeah, no, fair question. And, you know, to each his own. And the way I always approach these things, story time. When I was in NASA in 2009, NASA was basically launching space shuttles and rockets in the Air Force side. And then we had this one guy that said he was going to do reusable rockets. And he just got done building cars that we actually got to test drive at the space shuttle landing facility. And we absolutely did not like it because he was disrupting our way of doing, right? And I'm not saying EPA is doing this or the government's not doing this, but it's just, you know, the only thing constant is change, and the one thing that humans are bad at is accepting change. And that's okay, right? But the folks that we deal with in Region 9, in the Southeast, Southwest Pacific, with DOH, they're accepting of this. They're trialing it. That's the reason why there's a process called feasibility study, and maybe the terms are changed now, feasibility study, pilot demonstration. Basically, does the science work in a small fashion? Pilot study on site, does it work in a scale up? Can we build cost evaluations to it so we can understand what the cost model looks like and see if this is a good alternative? Because we're going for sustainability, right? And I don't want to impose a sustainability tax. That's stupid, right? And then if it works, science works, the scalability engineering is capable, then you go for full scale, right? I'm not saying skip. Saying, do this, do this, do this, because we've been doing these already. We're now being asked to stop even quoting pilot. They're just asking us to quote full scale now, building in a pilot model as a task order number 1. And if we meet that threshold and those levels that we can get to, then we already have a contract for the full scale. So when it comes down from a regulation perspective, we actually met with Representative Neely's office in DC a few weeks ago, Trevor. Yeah. We're looking to meet with Senator Warren's office also. We want the town, we want the people to know about these technologies because, frankly, not a lot of folks, even in the environmental world, even you at NASA had this. And when we finally license this, if I can get a nickel for every single time I heard this, right, 2 things. We've been tracking this since 2012, but we were fearful that it stayed in NASA, it's just a science project. We're so happy that somebody actually licensed it and is now commercializing. If I had a nickel for that, I wouldn't be raising capital. Or, will this work for PFAS? That's also a good way of raising capital. But yeah, so I think it's more of those things of don't take my word for it. Let's do trials, right? And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Not for that site, but at least you've tried it out. And I always say this to my team, until you proved it to not work, keep going. Keep pressing the envelope. Don't stay comfortable. Go to the edge of comfort. That's where you're supposed to be.
Where you learn.
Yeah, that's where you learn. And if you really want to know where the stakes are the ones that are in the future generation right now. So that's why, by the way, when we do these programs with our clients, we respectfully always add an educational component to it. We must educate the 3rd and 4th graders and high schoolers that there's career paths for environmental and sustainability that focuses on not just the accounting, nursing, doctors, lawyers, engineers. There's a pathway to build a fruitful career in climate tech and clean tech and great water technologies. So,
Josh has another question.
Too much.
Josh, you want to follow up and then we'll move on. You want to follow up with a question?
I think you're muted, Josh.
The EPA does not, you haven't answered my question.
Yeah.
The EPA does not recognize your technology as being effective. And the EPA will not allow your technology to be used on any sort of larger scale with this project unless A, they approve of it, and B, that it is more cost effective than the current plan in place. So again, I'm asking you, how you can address the fact that the EPA Region 1 does not recognize the applicability of your technology and has not signed off on it being proven technology that has worked on a larger scale rather than a sample. And how would this be at all implementable if the EPA is standing in opposition?
Yeah, so we're meeting with EPA Region 1 on Monday.
If it's not cost effective.
Yeah, we're meeting with EPA Region 1 on Monday. And as far as the question is as to why, EPA has not approved it, well, we haven't done a project with EPA Region 1. And to be frank with you guys, and I told the guys at the meeting earlier today, I've told my team to avoid the Northeast.
They're afraid of poison ivy.
As a startup company, right? We have to go where projects move, right? We only have a little bit of time, a little bit of budget, a little bit of manpower. So we got to go where we can effectively roll out our technologies and build it to the appropriate scale. So I basically said, we're not ready for the Northeast yet. Too much stuff going on there. Too much political going on there. It's a big issue. Don't get me wrong. And EPA is just being very, very risk adverse, and rightfully so, because they're really trying to look out for the future generation as well in their own right. But because we have not done a full-scale project with them, that should not discount us from doing a small project with them.
Agreed.
Right? Or with the town. So. Does that help, Josh?
Okay.
Well, I need to understand the clarity of whether you're looking to use the Housatonic River as a testing grounds for your technology for the applicability in the future, or do you realistically think there is a way for using your technology to make a meaningful impact on the remediation of the Housatonic River?
Yeah, so I didn't get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. I didn't think there was a hope here. So yes, I think there's a future here where ecospheres can help out the Berkshires and the surrounding towns. Yeah. Or else I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. If I may, I can say that we had we met for over 2 hours today with ecospheres. Chris and I met with them, and the EPA was here. Dean from the EPA was here. And he listened. This is a process. As Sergey said, they're meeting with the EPA on Monday. It's an ongoing process. This is if I may say, an educational presentation so people understand what ecospheres is about. And we're trying to make headway using this process. We're trying to get it onto the table. There is a signed agreement with the EPA and GE and 5 towns, including the town of Lee. Nobody at this table is responsible for that, but we have to deal with it. But we want to use whatever influence we can, whatever is going to be effective to try to impact that agreement to come up with a better arrangement than a disposal facility, or at least an improved facility. As we go into the future, but it's a process, yeah. and the characterization that the EPA is going to simply ignore it and not allow it is just inaccurate, and I think we just have to keep pushing.
That's absolutely true. Like I said, we work with a lot of amazing folks at the EPA, and they just want the best solution for the communities, and they just want it to be de-risked as possible. Let's be frank, right? Nobody wants to be the first one, right? That's why we went after clients first and partnered with client partners first, that they had no other issue, they had no other solution. To ship contaminants, even if you can't ship it from Guam to the mainland US, is somewhere around $3,500 per ton. It's a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Do you have any questions, Sean, Gordon?
No, I just, I'm interested to find out what happens after Monday, number one, and where we go from here.
Yeah, I think we'll meet with EPA on Monday, and we'll see what they have to say. And John and Trevor and Colin also are going to be spearheading this campaign. I'm going to be in Hawaii and Guam. Sorry. I promised the wife that I would let the kids know they still have a father from time to time. So we'll be in Hawaii for a little bit of holidays, and then we have sites and meetings out there and planning for our pilot program with Coast Guard in Guam, and then in another small island in Hawaii, and possibly a very, very large dioxin site at a former agricultural facility. So.
I do have one more question before you go.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a projected timeline for doing sampling for our town here to get underway a small area of being able to test this for us?
Yeah, I think Trevor, Ian, and Tim are working something together. These days, I'm just being told where to go. Be on a plane, be ready to speak, here's your coffee, so you're awake. So, yeah, but I think between Tim, Trevor, and Ian, we're putting together a game plan for that. John is spearheading more of the community and city engagements. One of the things that we discussed too, there's an opportunity maybe outside of that site, and there's another site where we can actually do work in without the GE involvement into it. We love that also. We have other technologies that would work, and it's a good way of getting this in. That way, now the regulators and the liable parties can see, hey, it actually worked. They're not the first one, and you got to help them out a little bit too.
Right.
Yeah. So everybody just wants this thing solved. It's been too long, and it's not going away. Definitely not naturally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if we just keep the focus on the greater good and a hope for the future, I think we can easily find ourselves in a good alignment to say, all right, let's put away the sticks for a second and let's talk. Let's see what we can do. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll find other ways. But at least we can say that we tried. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Sergey, thank you very much for being here tonight. You, Trevor, and John. We wait with great anticipation to hear about your meeting on Monday.
Sounds good, sir.
And a conversation has been opened. The EPA was here today. That's a step in the right direction, I would say.
Yeah.
And we look forward to hearing from you and how things develop.
Yeah, and fantastic conversation with the team here this afternoon, especially with Dean.
Yeah.
Dean had some really good hard-hitting questions, good back and forth interaction. And what we've said to them is that, hey, if we don't know, we'll find out. And definitely, we're the first one to say, not us, if it's not the right solution for you all. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so moving on, we have a permit from a Berkshire Gas permit for 120 Hartwood Street.
John, you want to take it, or you want me to?
Yeah, sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the gas permit for 120 Hartwood Road. This is to relocate section of existing gas service.
Have the chair sign?
Yeah, and have the chair sign.
Yeah, I would second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We now have the right of first refusal waiver for 545 Stockbridge Road. Chris, maybe you can.
This is a Chapter 61 property, so the town has first right of refusal before the property is sold.
So maybe for people who want to know what that is, that's basically that there's certain property that is taking advantage of a tax reduction because of either forestation or it's an agricultural issue. Yeah. And the issue is to take advantage of that and pay less taxes to us, that we get the right to buy that property if they want to sell it to recoup our tax money, or we can say no thank you, but they owe us a certain amount of the back taxes, and we release the lien on that to us. So this is a 20 plus acre site, and they want to take 6.39 acres of it and sell that off as a separate property, and they are going to give us $4,000 and some in back taxes to make up that difference that they got tax relief on that 6.99 acres, excuse me. And so they're asking us to release the lien on just the 6.99 acres, and they'll give us money. Does that, Rob, answer what it is or not?
Yes, sir, except, I do have questions.
You can just come
on up
Rob.
to that, yep. This comes around every once in a while to us. Yep.
So the town owns the 20 acres?
No.
No.
Private, it's privately owned. They're
We
paying
have a
taxes
lien,
on it.
yeah.
But they get a reduced tax on their land that's in agricultural, basically conservation.
It could be agriculture, forestry, or recreation.
Yeah.
So a private individual owns the 20 acres
Yes.
and wants to
And it's
sell
forming.
town 6.99?
No, not us. They want it separately. It's a house on it, and they want to sell it to a new owner. The new owner doesn't want to keep it in agricultural, that 6.99 in agricultural.
Okay.
So that means they owe us back taxes.
So the money from the 6.99 acres from the new homeowner,
Or whatever,
so to
yeah,
speak,
yeah.
would go back to the town
That's correct.
to make it whole?
Correct.
It's the last 5 years of what they would have paid in taxes if they were not under Chapter 61. So,
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay.
And we have a breakdown on that if you want to look at the amount of tax per year.
I'm good.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Okay, so what do we need here? We need to add-
I'd make a motion to sign off on the right of first refusal waiver for 545 Stockbridge Road.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next is to sign the grant of a conservation restriction, the mount. Chris, maybe you can, this is a sort of old business, but,
yeah, this is going back to town meeting, I think almost 2 years ago now, when we sold, when we agreed to sell the house on Edith Wharton Park to the Mount, so it would become part of their museum. It's a long process, had to go through the state legislature, and this is one of the steps in the process for the towns of Lee and Lennox to sell this property to the Mount, so.
I was just checking, this is for the chair to sign only, or all of us? I think,
This one is for all of you, yeah.
okay. Thank you.
And this motion right
do we have
here.
any?
You have a motion? I think, let's pass it down to the gentleman who's going to make the motion.
I would move to approve the foregoing
Okay, Scott,
conservation restriction from Edith Wharton Restoration Incorporated to the Massachusetts Audubon Society in the public interest pursuant to Section 32 of Chapter 184 of the Massachusetts General Laws.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, further discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we have an appointment to Berkshire Regional Transit Authority. We have an application for, I think she's already on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reappointment.
A reappointment for Andrea Wadsworth.
I'd move that we reappoint Andrea Wadsworth to the PRTA Advisory Board.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Statewide petition, single-use plastic bag ban. Chris, you just give us an overview, please?
Yeah, so they're actually, so this is just a petition to ask the state to consider doing this on a state level.
We already do, right? Yeah.
Correct, yeah, so the petitioners have asked every town that already has the ban in place to sign on to this. So they're just asking if the town of Lee would sign on as a town that already has the ban, asking them to do that throughout the Commonwealth.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it. I don't know if anybody else does, but I mean, we're already doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would, might be kind of two-faced of us not to support the idea. So I would make a motion to sign off on the statewide petition.
Yeah, I'd second.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a temporary sign permit application and fee waiver from the First Congregational Church. The church is hosting a 23rd year a craft fair in the church park on one Saturday in the month of August, August 12th. And they're looking for a permit and a fee waiver.
I'd make a motion to approve the temporary sign permit and waive the fee.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have a tent permit fee waiver from the VFW.
Oh, that's
Well-
what this one is, yeah, okay.
You know, I had a question on this last year. It was from Michael Machad, or Mark Machad, excuse me. And the question was, I think this is at the greenhouse? They have a greenhouse there?
17 Devon Road, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my question is this for the VFW? I mean, who, or is this
Right.
for a private entity? Because I don't want to sign off on the fee waiver if it's for a private business.
Yeah.
But if it is truly to benefit the VFW, I got no problem with that.
Do we know?
And
Chris?
I'd like to get a clarification on that, because last year it was up, I noticed it was up all year long. I just want to be assured that the VFW is getting something out of this, and it isn't just, I know that he is a member of the VFW and maybe even the head of it this year. I just want to make sure that that's truly, there's profits or money that's going to the VFW to support them.
Well, the
And I'm not sure
application,
it's clear.
yeah, the application says it's for an annual Memorial Day celebration for the VFW, and that tent will be taken down.
Is this non-proton then?
Right.
They already-
Oh, okay, because
Yeah.
last year,
The tent
there was a
should be,
tent up
should
all.
already be down.
Yeah, okay, well,
If the
then
board
I have no
doesn't
problem
approve
with that.
this, we would bill them
No,
for it,
no,
so.
and I have no problem with that if it actually is going to the VFW. But last year, there was a tent up there all year long. And I think we waived the fee for that, and I'm not sure I would support that. But if this is for that one event, then I would make a motion that we sign off on this and waive the fee.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have a proclamation with Donna Toomey renaming the library reading room. Chris, do you have that?
Yeah, so this is similar to what we did about a month or so ago for Mary Philpott, another room in the library, and this was done upon her retirement. And so this is just the official signing. It was a surprise for Donna, so that's why it's nunc pro tunc.
Yeah, we already signed and Bob was there, Gordon, I think.
Yeah, I had
read
to
it.
leave
Yeah,
early.
you were
I was there, but I had to
We
leave
read
before
it.
you did
So
it.
we already read her, the proclamation and everything. Do we
Right.
have to make a motion to,
Yeah, just to accept
yeah,
it.
I'd make a motion to accept the proclamation for, to name the reading room, the Donna Toomey Library Reading Room.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the last item under general business is we have to sign the Colonial Power contract, which is, we've already discussed till length, but maybe we can,
Yeah, so at town meeting, we voted to approve municipal aggregation, and this is the contract with the company who has the county contract for Berkshire County. So they will begin the process of starting our aggregation, which will go to, we've already gone to town meeting, so we have that step out of the way. Now it will go to Department of Public Utilities, and then we wait for the state to come back to us for the next part of the process, so.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman, so I noticed on here, there's nothing about how much, it's gonna cost or anything like
Right.
that. So how does that work? Once we go into a contract, when do we get to know what our potential electrical savings are?
Right.
When does that happen, and what if we look at it and go, that's not worth it?
Well, once we have the company in place and the approval, then we can get bids for power.
Okay, so-
And that's
so
when we would
that's the
decide,
process.
yeah, which bid we're gonna take, for how long we want. If it's not a great price and it looks like prices are at kind of a higher point, we can do a shorter contract, et cetera. So,
Because
this
it
is
does
all
mention
negotiable.
it does mention 5 years, duration of the contract. That's our duration with these people, not necessarily with.
Not with the power company.
Okay,
right?
okay, I just
They
want to make
act
sure
as
we're not
a-
locked
yeah,
in.
Right.
Yeah, I don't mind being
This
locked
doesn't
into
put us
these
in a
folks.
5-year power contract,
Okay,
but it's 5 years with Colonial Power,
Yeah.
who
Who will
negotiates the rates.
I don't have a problem with that, I just want to make sure we're not locking into pig in the poke, so to speak.
Yeah. You guys will decide
Yeah.
what rates to accept and so forth when we get to that point. And then the public will receive a letter asking if they want to opt in or not.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that the board sign off on the Colonial Power contract.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in
Question,
favor?
question in the audience, if you don't
Not
mind.
applicable to this, but
Oh.
I do have a question when we're done.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, at this point, we have any topic the chairman cannot reasonably anticipate. Rob, do you have something?
Yet, regarding agenda for next month, I'm not sure about the procedure, but I would like, if it's okay for me to speak to briefly, the Lee Stockbridge merger fire department. If it would be possible to have as thorough possible
You want an update?
update.
Kind of a thing? Okay.
Perfect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair
I
enough?
think maybe we can do it before next month, but let's see, there's another meeting in this month.
Okay.
We'll see what the meeting timeframes
We've
are.
got
about
a
you
meeting
know.
coming
I
up.
was going to say, if you want to attend the meeting as well as an open meeting, so it's coming up on the 18th, but we can
It'll be
definitely do a
here as
report,
well, so.
In this room?
Yeah.
On the 18th, what time?
I believe it's at 5:30. I'll double check, Rob, if you, and let you know.
It should be on our town website also.
Yeah, when it's posted.
I've just
yeah.
heard some things,
Right.
and you know how things
Yes,
fly around.
yes, we do.
I'm not sure I can attend, but thank you.
Okay, sure.
Appreciate it.
One way or another, we'll get you an update.
What's the date of the meeting, Chris?
I believe it's the 18th.
What day of the week is
No,
that?
that's a Monday. No, that's a Sunday.
Oh, then it's definitely not the 18th.
It's not the 18th, Rob.
I will let you know. Sorry.
What do I got here?
But there is a meeting this month.
21st.
21st, thank you, okay.
5:30, yeah.
The day after the select board's meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
5:30 on the 21st. so.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, you have anything else that you?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, Chris?
Just one quick report I wanted to share, and I just received this this afternoon. The EPA had reached out with an update that they, I wanted to share it, that they're expecting to do some minimal site clearing work associated with collecting data for the UDF. In this case, they're collecting data for the stormwater basin. In order to get the drill rig there, they have to do they need to improve the area in order to facilitate access and operation of a drill rig and to drill borings and conduct permeability tests to establish conductivity. They were expecting to start this next week. However, there was an opportunity for the contractor to actually start it tomorrow. So I'm just wanting to mention to everybody, we just received this, that it's not, if you see a piece of equipment there, it's not that they're starting to dig a UDF or anything like that, but there may be some excavation to get a drill rig into that particular area.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention, I'm sorry I didn't when you asked, that I did attend a CDC meeting today as a member of the board. And also they're asking that our town administrator, Chris Britton, be sort of a member at large also. So I'm just giving the heads up that request may come here before us at the next meeting, and I doubt we'll have any problem with that, but I just wanted people to know. And after the minutes come out, I'll make a report at the next meeting as to what the CDC is up to. It was basically an annual meeting where they re-elected officers and confirmed membership, and and reappointments of people for certain durations of time, and I can get you more detail on that as the minutes get. It was a little confusing,
Yeah,
but
sure.
we got it under wraps, so.
Do you think it'll be for the next meeting?
Yeah, if that's okay, maybe we'll just put
Absolutely.
on there, and I'll give you an
Yep.
update since I'm on that committee.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all.
Seeing no other business, our next regular meeting will be on June 20th in this room at 7 o'clock. And now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
Gotta bang the gavel.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, she's my brand new
Hey.
gavel.